And good evening. Welcome to the University of Dubuque Football Show on 101.1 The River from the campus of the University of Dubuque, the offices of head coach Stan Zwiefel. And we've got the American Rivers Conference opener to talk about. Unfortunately, a loss for the Spartans to Simpson College to open up the conference portion of the schedule. And we're going to look ahead to game number 2 on the conference portion as they meet the Wartburg Knights, who are getting votes in the top 25 of this week. D3Football.com has the Knights rated at number 20, undefeated. And so certainly a test for the Spartans as they head over to Waverly, and certainly coming off a tough loss to Simpson College on Saturday night. So we're going to talk about that game that put the Spartans now 1-2, and they'll try to rebound and win at Wartburg, which has not happened for a while at Wartburg, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But certainly, that certainly would be a big, big win if the Spartans could head over there, even things out of 1-1 in the American Rivers Conference. And so we'll have Stan Zwiefel join us. So we'll get his comments on the game this past Saturday, and then this Saturday's contest, which you'll be able to hear on 101.1 The River. That's our first 1 o'clock kickoff of the season, the first of mostly 1 o'clock kickoffs for the rest of the season, with the exception, I think, of the homecoming game here on the UD campus. That might be a 2 o'clock kickoff, but everything else scheduled for afternoon kickoffs. And so the Spartans and the Knights will play at 1 o'clock over in Waverly, and we'll be on the air at 12:40 with that contest. But we've got to talk about last week's ball game and visit about the opponent this Saturday for the Spartans. When we return, we'll be joined by Stan Zwiefel, coach of the Spartans. This is the UD Football Show with Stan Zwiefel on 101.1 The River. And we're back on this Monday night, the University of Dubuque Football Show here on 101.1 The River, and also they're streaming the program with video on Facebook on the University of Dubuque's website, so you can click that link and check us out on Facebook. And joining me right now, Coach Stan Zwiefel, the coach of the Spartans. And, Coach, unfortunately, a loss to talk about here to begin the show. 21-14 set back to the Simpson College Storm. Came in and played very hard, ran the ball well, and turned out to be a 7-point win for the Storm.
Yeah, first of all, good to see you, Tim. And we've been here a while now, and that's been this past Saturday is one of my most disappointing losses, in a variety of reasons. First of all, I think Simpson's a very good football team. It'll be interesting to see how the season plays out for them. You know, they lost to Bethel, a very highly rated team, like we lost to Whitewater in the first one. Then they beat the University of Chicago at home in a very close game, like we beat Pacific. And I thought it was going to be an evenly matched game, but I thought we might have had a little bit of advantage with our skill matching up against them. But they were able to control the first half running the ball, Tim. I mentioned this last Monday. I don't know if we're tackling as well as we should be, and we've allowed some penetration in the A and B gaps in our run defense. Some of our defensive linemen not being as gap conscious as they should be. But I don't want to take anything away from the Meyer kid from Simpson, because he ran extremely hard, broke a lot of first tackles, went forward a lot, fell forward and got additional yardage. And they ran the ball, and their offensive line probably blocked a little bit better than I expected of them. So that part, you know, they jumped off to a 14-0 halftime lead. I felt we were flat. And, you know, when I say that, Tim, it's very hard to monitor whether a team's going to be emotionally ready or not emotionally ready. And, you know, sometimes you feel like your team's flat, but it's flat because they haven't been able to do anything, and you haven't been able to stop the opposition. Again, we took that opening drive and drove it down, I think their 24 or 25-yard line, gave it up on downs on a missed pass. We had a wide open kid in the flat, and we missed that. And that kind of set the tempo a little bit, I thought, because I kind of thought we could have scored some points, but we didn't do the field goal because it was into that heavy wind, Tim, and it had been about a 41 or 42-yard field goal. We're right in that no man's land, so we decided to go for it. But the first half, they really did a good job of keeping us off the field offensively. The one possession after that first drive we had a chance for, Tim, was we threw an interception at about the 14 or 15-yard line. The kid ran it back about 44 yards. They had ran a blitz, and we had picked it up very efficiently. Our quarterback got a little bit skittish and kind of rolled to his left and threw a ill-advised pass on a perimeter throw out there. I thought that was important. We were not allowed to get any points. And then also, Tim, I thought we had a chance to fumble in the first quarter. About at their 24-yard line. I thought it was a fumble and was ruled not a fumble. But, again, I don't want to sound like we should give some props to Simpson because they played extremely well in the first half and maintained the ability to run the ball. And then the kid threw some really nice on-target passes that I thought we were in good coverage, but better ball than we were in coverage. And their receiver was a good receiver, good tall kid that really competed for the football. So overall, the first half, gosh, I was very upset when we got in the locker room, Tim. Upset that it looked like we were playing unemotional, and it was looking like we couldn't make any plays. And that was upsetting to our staff and to our players at halftime.
Statistically, you outgained Simpson 420 to 354, but we talked about this during the broadcast and with Coach Eastburn. The big difference: third down conversions and fourth down conversions in red zone.
Yes, really, Tim. In the past 3 games, we have not converted as much of the red zone if you want to. And, yards are so misleading because what you do from the 20 to 20 is important in time of possession and yardage, but sure as hell ain't important if you don't get points on the board. And our inability to put points on that board, the interception we talked about, gave it up on downs the other time. You get some points in that game, it could change. I will say at halftime, I thought our staff made some excellent adjustments, both offensively and defensively. Specifically on defense, we did a couple things with our edge players to kind of take a little bit of that A and B gap I was talking about, inside the guard and tackle hole, getting some people to squeeze that thing down a little bit, getting some secondary run support in there. And in the second half, we played much better. And I had told the kids at halftime I can't use all the colorful language that I used, Tim, because it was very colorful at halftime because I don't get upset that often at the kids, but I was upset at halftime about our lack of emotion and enthusiasm. So I told them we need to stop them, score, and I'll be darned if that's just the way it played out. And so at 14-14, Tim, I thought, hey, we got a chance now. We've really kind of stemmed the tide a little bit. Then they had a quarterback that scrambled for about 16, 17 yards for a first down. And then not many people talked about this after the game, but I thought it was the biggest turning point of the game when we didn't field the punt. We lost, 32, 26, 28, whatever you want to do, whoever knows it was, and took us from being at about the 45, 50-yard line back to our 20-yard line. That really changed how we had to go about business in that game. But I don't want to take anything away from Simpson. They played very physical on the offense and offensive line, and their running back had a heck of a game, and their quarterback, Tanner Krieger, he was accurate when he needed to be accurate. Again, a guy gets a little bit crazy sometimes on statistics, To me, the statistics that's the most important is we're 1-2 and 0-1 in the conference. And so you can win the statistical battle and still lose the game. What you want to do is win the game, and who cares about the stats? So we've put ourselves in a big hole, Tim. I don't think we played well on Saturday, the first half especially, as I noted earlier. But we need to figure it out real fast, Tim, because I think I told you last week we're in Game 4 now, and pretty soon you are who you are. And so I said this last week to you, we've got a lot of potential on our football team. We've got a lot of good players, but we have to get there as soon as we possibly can. And we'll talk about Wartburg here in a couple minutes. That's going to be a really good football team.
Mm-hmm. You did get, I think you got a little closer to where you want to be with the rushing attack.
We did.
Averaged, it was over 4.5 yards a carry, I think, and so that's not bad, but, still room for improvement.
Yeah, Tim, we have two very good running backs in Dwayne Allen and Cordell Stillmunkus. And last year I was looking at our statistics through the first 5 games. Our two top running backs were averaging over 6 yards per carry. We were more explosive last fall in the run game than we are now. And I can't tell you why it is or it isn't. Obviously, UW-Whitewater had something to do with it, with their very good defense, if not a great defense. And then Pacific, we noted a week ago, was going to sell out to stop the run. I thought we could have run the ball better than we did, but we did make improvements. And Dwayne at times was outstanding because we had some unblocked guys at point of attack, and he was able to make the first guy miss. We need to continue to improve on that. We need to continue to improve on our run game blocking, being more physical, getting guys off the second level, working our combos and our scoops, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about Simpson. I'm just telling you we've got to do better than we did. But there was a marked improvement from game 1 and 2 to game 3 in our rushing game.
Mm-hmm. The receiving core getting a little thinner. You've had some injuries, but Jordan Labelle and Cody Reimer really had good games for you.
Jordan Labelle's a kid that we thought has always been on the cusp of playing for us. He's a junior this year. He's got outstanding underneath ability. He's got great shake. He caught a touchdown pass. He's got really good hands. He's got some good movement. Cody's been a good player for us for 3 years. We've had Emmanuel Jenkins over on the defense, so he's not been on our receiving core. And we lost Elliot Pipkin came out of that game, and A.J. Hunter hasn't played since the Whitewater game, and Master Powell hasn't played but about 15 snaps since the Whitewater game. So 2 of our top 5 receivers are out. We've got to get those folks healthy. But I think we threw the ball effectively again. I just wish we had more points for the yards we had. You get 440 yards, you should be scoring 28 to 35 points, and 28 to 35 points wins that football game.
Mm-hmm. Going back to, I guess, the second half, you tied the ball game, like you said, 14-14, feeling pretty good at that point. What was the biggest difference down the stretch then that where Simpson had?
Really interesting to me, Tim. When I analyzed that game, I thought the first 3 possessions of the second half, our defense really did a good job. Got us the ball back. That first possession in the fourth quarter, they got a pretty long drive, and we got the ball in kind of a longer field, and then we weren't able to do anything. And on the exchange of punts, they were able to push that ball down. Well, I think 7:37 left in the game to go ahead. I think that was close to when that score was. And, I really felt that we were still going to tie that game up, and we came down. Tim, we got 2nd and 6, I think, at the 8 or 9 yard line. We ran a couple RPOs. That's a run-pass option where the quarterback makes the decision after the snap of the ball whether to throw it or to run it, and he chose to twice go to the pass part of the RPO, and we just missed both those. I thought one was open, and I thought one was a very difficult throw, and we weren't able to complete it. They made some plays in their last drive, and we weren't able to make some plays in that last drive. So, as I said, it was a really bitter loss, Tim, disappointing. And again, as I said, Simpson played a heck of a football game. We'll see how that all pans out as the season goes along. They might be better than we thought they were, but we'll have to see. But I think, again, we talked as a staff and as a team afterwards. Very seldom is it the plays you called. It's more the execution of the players and how you execute the play that was called. Because I really thought that we had a really good chance to tie that game up when we were behind 20-14, but also to go ahead when it was 14-14.
This is the University of Dubuque football show. Head football coach Stan Zwiefel joining us here on this Monday night. So game number 1 of the American Rivers Conference in the books. We will preview the next contest, a trip to Waverly to take on the Wartburg Knights coming up this Saturday. And we'll do that when we return in 1 minute. You're listening to the UD football show on 101.1 The River. And we're back on the University of Dubuque football show here on 101.1 The River. Do want to say thanks to Conlin Construction, also the University of Dubuque, and Dubuque's Heritage Center as well, sponsors of the UD football show on our Monday nights. And we're going to talk about the Wartburg College Knights here in just a moment with Coach Sweefel. But this past Saturday, the UD Athletic Hall of Fame awards ceremony took place at the Heritage Center. And, Coach, I know you're proud. You've got one of your pupils, Justin Spalding, the second one that you've coached that's been a Hall of Famer here.
Right.
And a couple other UD football players, Rick Wallace, class of 81, and, of course, Jamar Jackson, who was a 2010 graduate.
Great player.
Yeah, he
Jamar
sure
was a great player.
So that had to make you pretty pleased to see you, Justin.
Share a couple stories with those Hall of Fame guys. First of all, Rick Wallace came in Thursday, and he came in. He's a former coach, coached at TCU after here and coached some high school football. And then I did a little research on Rick. Rick gave one of his kidneys to save one of his players' lives down in Texas, and he was named the recipient, the Sportsman of the Year in Texas. I don't know if the year was 15 or 16, Tim, but somewhere in there. So I had a chance to visit with him about that and tell him how happy we were to have him be in the Hall of Fame. And it's kind of the first guy off that championship teams that went in that Coach Birmingham had, so that was really cool. And then Justin Spalding, my tailback, went in off of our first championship team. He was one of my first recruits. A real funny story, or stories about Justin Spalding. He was at rival high school of my son's, Milton, Wisconsin, and my son and him had a really spirited rivalry in high school between the two of them as they moved along through their careers. And when I took the job at Mankato, I recruited Justin Spalding out to Mankato, and our head coach decided not to offer him at Mankato, so he went back to UW-Whitewater, and when I got the job, I was able to connect back with him, and he was one of my first recruits coming in for us, and obviously a great running back. He is the all-time leading rusher right now. I think that'll be broken by our present tailback here in probably the next 2 or 3 games, but Justin's his family is really close friends with mine. His dad's a veterinarian, and they've just got a great family, and Justin really helped us turn the corner, I thought, about taking our program to where it would be. And then Jamar I've seen on tape many, many times. Another funny story about Jamar that kind of connects me to him. In 2006, we were playing Central first round, the playoffs at Whitewater. And one of the games we had on Central's film exchange was Game 9, played here at Dubuque when Jamar threw 4 touchdown passes.
Was that triple overtime game?
Yes, maybe 4 or 5 touchdown passes.
That was amazing.
And I was like, boy, that kid's pretty dang good. And Central's pass defense is pretty dang bad. And that was a game that I think I'd be like 35-28 or 42-35, a really high-scoring game where Dubuque took them to the end of overtime, as you mentioned. So we had seen Jamar on tape prior to me getting here. And, of course, when I got here, he had used up all his eligibility. But had a chance. He was still taking some classes. Had a chance to visit with him and told him what a spectacular quarterback he was.
Well, it was a great ceremony, and congratulations to all the UD Athletic Hall of Famers who made it in, and I'm sure there'll be some more.
Yeah, there will be, and
no doubt
it's
about
kind
it.
of nice as you get a little bit farther on in your career, you get some folks in those kind of things. Those are nice.
Well, let's talk about the opponent this Saturday. The Wartburg Knights, they're unbeaten on the season, and they really haven't had too much of a test yet as they've got up to that 3-0 start.
Oh, my gosh, Tim, they have really dominated people. I'm on the rating committee for the NCAA Division III National Rating Committee, have been for the past 6 years, and I rated Wartburg number 7 in the country this week. When I watch them on tape, they haven't been challenged yet. They've got, as I think I mentioned this, Tim, before we went on there, they got as good as team speed as I remember anybody having in the last 5 or 6 years. Outstanding team defensive speed. And the other thing that sticks out to me is how hard they play on special teams. And they've been very difficult to beat at home. Probably the only team that's really had their number in the years that I've been in the conference is Simpson. Simpson's had a chance to beat them, I think, 3 times in my 11 years here. But they are difficult as heck to beat at home. And they're difficult to beat anywhere. But they're very difficult to beat at home. And they're really on a roll right now, Tim. They started off with Greenville with a monster score, and then beat Monmouth, who had beaten them a year before, beat them badly, and then really laid one on Luther last week, 62-10, and just completely that game wasn't as close as 62-10 indicates. It was really a when you watch tape, they were really good on that day. So they're kind of on a roll, and we kind of have a rivalry. I don't know if you can call it that because we haven't beat them enough, but I think it's been a very intense game between us and them, and so I'm hoping that we can go down there and play well. It's going to be a yeoman's task, tough duty for our kids because they play so hard and they are so quick. We're going to have to run the ball, Tim, better than we have the first 3 games if we expect to win this game. We're going to have to play better rush defense if we expect to win this game. And then we got to make some big plays, Tim. Kind of like similar to Pacific because, last week we made no big plays. We made no plays that are 35, 40 yards, and that's really what our team is built for. So we've got to be able to do those kind of things. The good news about playing Wartburg is, boy, they're going to show you where they're going to line up, and here they come. So it's not like they're going to finesse you or do some things like we've seen. Simpson played 9 different coverages last Saturday against us. We ain't going to get this Saturday. It's going to be you're going to know where they are, and you're going to have to out-execute them. So that'll be a big factor in this game. And I said this to our team today in our team meeting. I said, Tim, those special team players that they have, they play as hard as anybody I've seen in the 11 years that I've been here. So we've got to match that because the special team yardage that we lost last Saturday contributed to our loss.
Is this a pretty veteran Wartburg team coming in?
At certain spots they are. At certain spots there isn't. One of the things Wartburg always does, I think, Tim, is they have highly dominant junior and senior classes. So a lot of their seniors and juniors who aren't starting are playing on those special teams. We have a lot of guys who start on our offense, defense, play special teams. They seem to have more special team players that aren't starters, kind of like a spirit de corps for their special teams. They have that kind of depth, I think. They probably have better depth, I think, in our league than anybody, maybe with the exception of Central. So that provides them opportunities for those kids really to shine on that. They surely are beatable. We're going to go down there. I think we're going to have an outstanding game plan. Last year I think it was 34-27 with 7 minutes left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. And we played a really good game up here, came up a little bit short. We have to find a way not to come up a little bit short and go to their place. And we're going to have to play a good game now, Tim. We're not going to go out there and play an average game and beat these kids. But if we play a good game and don't turn the ball over and get our rushing game going and get a little bit more solid in our run game, I think we'll have a really good chance.
They're allowing 13 points a game. Talk to me a little bit more about their defense.
Yeah. Their defense is, I'd say, undersized, but extremely quick, and they rally to the ball. And what I mean by rally to the ball, Tim, is they're relentless. If I'm the left corner and the ball's on the right side of the field, they all get to the ball. And they get to the ball in a hurry, and they get off blocks. They do a good job of teaching their kids to get off blocks. They're doing some twist games and stunt games with their front four, and even though they're undersized, they don't stay in one place very long, my friend. And so I think we'll have a size advantage on them. But, man, you got to take that size advantage and be able to knock them off the ball so you can get some, get our running backs up into the second and third level. And they're very good at not allowing that to have happen.
As you mentioned, tough spot to be in, losing that first game in the conference.
It is, Tim.
I feel like you get a measure of this team, the Spartan team, that might be a team that can play good with backs against the wall like that.
I'm hoping they can, Tim. As I told you before we got on the air, one of the things that I talked to our team all about is it's going to be game 4, and pretty soon you establish who you are. Mm-hmm. There isn't magic wands in any sport where you change midstream like there's something that automatically happens. I think the biggest challenge for our men is to execute what we're doing better. And, we've had some changes in our staff, and I think our new coaches are still trying to find out what we do the best, trying to identify where our players should be, what spots we should put them in, and how we can do that. Now, we've got to do that this week, Tim. We've got to do that this week because we're on a brutal stretch now, Tim. We're on a brutal stretch in our schedule. And so we have to we've got I don't know if our back's to the wall, but I can see that wall, let me tell you, or I can feel it. And this is a really important game for us to try to get back to 500 in conference play.
Coach, we appreciate your time this evening. Thanks for joining us here on the UD Football Show, and we'll be with you in Waverly. Broadcast time 12:40, kickoff at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're hoping we can change those fortunes a little bit that we've had at Wartburg. We've played them an overtime game and a 6-point game, and we just have not been able to solve whatever that mystery is. But this is a new year, a new team, and what's happened in the past really isn't going to affect what's going to happen on Saturday.
All right. Well, Coach, again, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
And we'll see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. This is the UD Football Show with head coach Stan Zwiefel. We'll come back and have some final thoughts when we return on 101.1 The River. And we're back on the UD Football Show. Just enough time to talk about the broadcast coming up on Saturday. Jim Cloran will be joining me in the booth. Hopefully Jim will be with us. He's a little under the weather today, but I think he'll probably have it taken care of by Saturday, so he'll join me on the broadcast as the Wartburg Knights host the University of Dubuque Spartans. Spartans looking for their first win in Waverly since 2006, and before that, 1988. So like Coach Zwiefel pointed out, those wins are hard to find over there at the Walston Hoover Stadium, but the Spartan team up to the test this Saturday. We'll see if that happens, and the Spartans get that record back to 1-1 or back to 500 in American Rivers Conference play and get that overall record to 2-2 on the season. It'll be a 12:40 pregame, 1 o'clock kickoff. And then next Monday, we'll be back here again with another University of Dubuque football show with Coach Zwiefel joining us. 6 o'clock next Monday night. So that's going to wrap it up for our UD football show here on this Monday night. From the coach's office, I'm Tim Larry on 101.1 The River.